Not all stories are chronological, especially when considering the tale of Quentin Tarantino. I am not satisfied until the spoon is standing straight up. You want a big, fat, juicy crime story buried in a tale of absolute love at first sight? This movie has everything. You want Christian Slater? Got him. Patricia Arquette? Present. Michael Rappaport? Bronson Pinchot? Brad Pitt? James Gandolfini? Dennis Hopper? Christopher Walken? Samuel L. Jackson? Gary Oldman? I have to stick to the cast alone. Otherwise, I may just gush. With a script by our boy QT and directed by the late, great Tony Scott, we are in for a treat, Elliot. The Fantasmagorium proudly presents Bullets, Babes, and Blades. I am Scotty R37, Cat is on brain detail, and Steve is a cantaloupe.
And maybe one of these days you'll get the title of the show right.
No, I wrote that one properly. I did that one correct.
No, you didn't.
Bullets, Babes, and Blades?
Blades and babe. Read the caption on the screen.
Read the fortune from your cookie, Scott, and someday you will get this correct. You're going to have to forward that as a private message. I apologize. How are you, Kat? How's your day?
Good.
You've had quite the afternoon.
I did. I watched Dark Knight Rises, 10th anniversary today.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched True Romance for the first time.
Which is very interesting. However, before we get to the True Romance, and this is sort of a Christopher Nolan side quest, how did you feel about revisiting Dark Knight Rises on its 10th anniversary?
Good. The IMAX scenes are still, the scale of it is really epic. I mean, yes, has the most plot contrivances of the three. I would say it's therefore the most comic of the three, but it feels very grandiose and big and bombastic, but the drama element is still there. So I think it still holds up pretty well.
And I remember it fondly. I haven't seen it in probably about a year and a half. But I do remember it fondly. A lot of people are poo-poo upon The Dark Knight Rises, but I don't find that as such.
Yeah, I only spontaneously remember that this was the anniversary coming up, which is why I decided to watch it. But every year I do watch Dark Knight at midnight because that was the one and only midnight movie premiere I've ever went to, and I did that on Monday morning or Sunday night, Monday morning, which is always fun. And then between the two movies today, I did go get another movie out of the mailbox last night in Soho, 4K, and then I helped catch my neighbor's runaway dog. So that was a nice little interlude before True Romance.
I still haven't seen Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright, with Anna Taylor-Joy and Matt Smith, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Matt Smith, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Thomasin McKenzie, and Terrence Stamp, and the last performance from Diana Rigg.
Ooh.
People knock that movie a lot for its third act, and I can kind of see why, but I still really liked it.
I haven't... It's weird. It's kind of strange for me, just because I am such a fan of Edgar Wright, that I haven't seen it yet.
I don't remember there being a ton of marketing for it. I was in LA at the time, and it's like, hey, this new movie opened. It's Edgar Wright. We're like, hey, let's go. It was the night before I had to drive, 500 miles back north. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. What the hell? And so we went, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm. Well, when we do our Edgar Wright retrospective, we can discuss it in depth.
Yes, and then I got also, as far as retrospectives, got my 4K of The Northman this week as well.
Oh.
Third film by Robert Eggers. That's another intense film that I highly recommend.
Well, and that's a director that I haven't seen much of his work. I haven't seen The Northman, and didn't he do?
He's only made 3 movies.
The Vivitch,
The Vitch, and The Lighthouse are the other two.
Right. I haven't seen any of it.
I'd say The Lighthouse is my favorite because at no point in the movie did I have any clue where the story was going, which I liked. It was engaging that way. And the performances and the cinematography were fantastic. And then second, I would put The Vitch for its atmosphere and the performances and the story. And then third would be The Northman. Because it does throw some surprises. Not that it's bad. I like all 3 of his movies. So it's like trying to pick, which one's your favorite. The Lighthouse was easy to pick as my favorite, but the second 2 were a little harder to rank. But
in terms of In terms of the reviews that I've heard about the Vavitch, I heard that it was like oddly historically accurate.
Yeah, he does a ton of research in advance. The Northman is said to be the most accurate Viking movie ever made. Much more accurate even than the TV show Vikings, which is everybody's been obsessing over lately. Uh, so
Filmed
he
in
really does,
Canada.
like in the Lighthouse. Even he insisted because the film takes place in the 1890s that they get lenses from that time period to shoot it on. That's that's dedication there. And he does tons of research to try and make his films as authentic as possible. And he has no desire to make a film set in the modern era.
Mm.
He has at least one more New England folktale he wants to make, and 2 or 3 times now his attempt at remaking Nosferatu has fallen apart, and I hope it succeeds this time. But that's a discussion for another day.
Well, no, but it's also, and I think it's been advantageous when talking about Quentin Tarantino because we've sort of opened it up to cinema in general. And so these little intros, I apologize from distracting from the Tarantino-ness, but, it's also, it's one of those things. Like, we're going to be talking about Dr. Zhivago for no good reason except for Quentin Tarantino wants us to talk about it. So it's interesting and, a more broad cinematic discussion. I think it's in order. But this is True Romance, directed by Tony Scott, the late great, famous for Top Gun, Man on Fire, and I really liked Domino with Keira Knightley. I thought
Yeah,
that was a really good movie.
yeah, that movie threw me for a loop. I remember the day I saw it. It was Wednesday, June 21st, 2006, and it's like I didn't know what to expect, and I like how the opening text says, this is like I think it says something to the extent that some of this is true, or it might be a true story, except for it's something like that, and you watch it, and it's like, okay, some of these were real people, but it's just completely balls to the wall insane, and the color grading on it just makes it feel even crazier. But
Well,
that's a hangout movie.
that is, oh, absolutely. And it's long. I think it's like 220.
I Is it that long? I got it right here. Let's see.
Check it out.
Of course I do. Let's see. It is.
We are celebrating both Tony Scott and Quentin Tarantino today, my listeners.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
2 hours 8 minutes, so about 2 hours excluding credits. So yeah.
Okay. And you have, and sorry, we'll get back to True Romance in a moment, but when you're talking about Domino, you even have Tom Waits in that movie.
Yes.
Like it's a dynamic cast. That is the last movie that I remember Dabney Coleman in.
Mm.
I don't even know if Dabney Coleman is still alive. But so Tony Scott has made many notable films. From what I recall in terms of the production, I think this is the first script that Quentin Tarantino sold.
Yes, he sold it right after the success of Reservoir Dogs.
Mm.
Uh,
And
I don't know if that's because he needed the money or because I can't imagine that he wasn't interested in actually shooting this himself because it screams Tarantino. Albeit, I think Tony Scott does a better job with it because I can kind of imagine what the Tarantino version would look like. But because Tony, as we'll discuss, brings his own style to it as well and his own flair without radically changing the source material like Oliver Stone did.
I still haven't seen Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, you're in for this, but
We'll get there when we get there.
we'll get there when we get there. But this one, yeah, it feels Tarantino all the way through, but it does have that Tony Scott flavor. And as one critic noted in the review at the time, you could just feel that Tony Scott needs to direct all of Tarantino's scripts to bring his flair and panache to it. Would be like he did here. It's just fantastic.
Well, and also, and when it comes to the direction, and it's a conversation that I was having with Ben from Cinema Gulp earlier, just in terms of the contributions that you get from a director as opposed to just their vision, but like the cinematography, the director of photography, the music, the sound, the editing, things like that. We are dealing with a Tarantino story, and it feels Tarantino top to bottom. But it's a recipe made by a different chef, if you'll allow the sort of metaphor. But I really enjoy it. I think that it is one of the reasons why I like Tony Scott and Quentin Tarantino. It is all you want in one, and also I guess Tony Scott would have had a lot of clout at that. Like this is post Top Gun,
And
so
post Days of Thunder.
oh right, I forgot about Days of Thunder. Good call. Um, but the cast,
Yeah,
this
I didn't look into any of that when I watched this, and because I just watched it for the first time, just finished it a few minutes ago. It's like, okay, the movie's starting out, boy meets girl, okay, whatever. And then when she mentions that she was like a call girl who's been paid to see him or whatever, I started getting kind of interested. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Where's this going? And so when you see that her pimp is, Gary Oldman in this, I'm like, I recognized him immediately, but completely different voice, trying to do like she says, oh my, he asks her, this pimp, is this guy, is he black? And she's like, no, but he thinks he is. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what Gary Oldman's doing here. And it put such a huge smile on my face to see how ridiculous this was. Sam Jackson there, and just out of the blue, the guy gets a shotgun and kills everybody. I'm like, oh shit, he just killed Sam Jackson. And I mean,
it's so fun to go back and watch old movies where Sam Jackson shows up for like two blinks. And it's like, oh my God, Sam Jackson is in Goodfellas, and he's dead.
yeah, and so when he goes there, I already forgot his name, the lead character,
Clarence.
Clarence. Yes, that's right. When he goes there to, get Alabama out, and they're kind of having this conversation, and I thought, okay, he's really keyed up because he could have just had his thugs throw the guy out, but no, we're gonna get in a fight. And they never really explain why, when he points the gun at the girl and tells her to get all of Alabama's stuff and throw it in the suitcase, she gives him a suitcase full of cocaine instead. And I was sad to see Gary Oldman go that early in the movie because I thought he was just fantastic. And like, this is just crazy. And I didn't think, I was like, how's it going to get better than this? So of course we have, Christopher Walken and Cyrus Vondas and James Gandolfini coming after him. I'm like, this is just going to be good. And of course, that's a one-off scene too with Walken and Hopper. But man, that's really good. I mean, some people say it's like the greatest scene, one of the greatest scenes ever. I don't know about that. It was really good, and it was really funny how he's leading him on because the guy's going to kill him when he's finished telling this little story.
I thought it was better than De Niro and Pacino in Heat. Rewatching it, I was like, no, this one's better.
I guess so. I mean, maybe. I mean, it was funny, kind of a theatrical-esque type of conversation, and I like
there's something about the way that those two actors, the authority that Walken portrays and the fear that Hopper betrays. Like, he's trying to be a confident man, and he is scared as shit. And I think that that's a really, like, I think that's one of the greatest performances. And also the scenes between Dennis Hopper and Christian Slater. I was like, okay, Dennis Hopper is pretending to be Christian Slater's dad. And by like 4 minutes, if that, I'm like, no, Dennis Hopper's not Christian Slater's dad. Like, I believe the performance. Every one of the movie itself is so sincere that the performances of all the actors, I just find them so believable.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on the notion that he was scared when Walken was talking to him. I picked it up as he just knew it was over with. Like he
knew he was gonna die.
Yeah, he knew he was gonna die, so he figures, what the hell, I'm just gonna stick it to this guy.
Sure.
With the story of the Sicilians, and true story. I still know an Italian guy who told me a lot about how the mob comes from Sicily primarily, he says, how horrible it all is, and he went on and on about Sicilians and another type of monologue. I'm like, okay. And so then hearing this one, it's just a bit different. And I like how it just dives into how extremely racist both those characters are, because he's talking about this like it's a big insult.
Well, and again, it does come down to, like we were talking last week about the nature of the hard R N word. And, it's Tarantino. You're going to get that. And it is a very racially charged conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but I liked that throughout the story that he's telling about the Sicilians that Walken is just kind of smiling and laughing the whole time. Like, he can't believe this guy. And he didn't even realize it. This Finch Vondas is there, and he doesn't apparently speak English or understand it. Because he's just
yeah.
kind of standing there, ho-hum, kind of watching it. And then when he finally gets shot, he's like, hey, what happened? Oh, he said that the Sicilians are descended from black people, so he shot him. It's like, oh, God, that's funny.
And I like how he sort of gives that.
Yeah, it's like,
He's just like, all right, makes sense.
But that was Walken's only scene in the movie. I guess they felt they couldn't top it or something because he just kind of it just felt like a bit part that you could tell when Tarantino wrote the script. He was probably thinking of somebody like that playing that role, like not just some random person off the street. It's like it had to be a big name, and that's what makes it work. And he's not doing the Christopher Walken shtick, which is nice. He's playing an actual character.
I don't know. I could be mistaken. I could be misremembering. But I thought that Walken was in. I thought he walked into the hotel, the Beverly.
He's not there at all in the climax, no.
Oh, okay, then my mistake. My mistake.
No, but that bit there, that was great. And following their little plan that we're going to travel cross country, we're going to figure it out type of thing. And it's like, okay. And then they do the nice little montage with or not really so much of a montage as them in the phone booth with the Chantilly Lace by the Big Bopper playing. That was a great music choice for that scene.
Hello, baby.
Yeah, they're in there, and I was wondering the whole time they're in the phone booth if somebody was going to drive up trying to use the phone or something, but no.
Well, I think it's interesting, and it's one of the things upon the rewatch that sort of took me off guard is, I've always watched True Romance as a Quentin Tarantino film. I've never really watched it as a romance.
Right.
And Hello, Baby at the phone booth where they make love or, they fuck, whatever you want to choose. They're married, so I would assume it's making love. I really watched this as the motivation between the man and the woman, Clarence and Alabama. They're in love. This is La La Land in a Tarantino verse.
Yeah.
And I think it's a crime story couched in a romance. And I think that this time that I watched it, I was so invested in their. I always sort of dismissed it, even though the name of the movie is True Romance. I always dismissed that it was True Romance. And this time it kind of smacked me in the forehead. And I was like, oh my God, these guys are in love.
Yeah, I picked up on that. It gets with the whole beginning, 15 minutes, and have them going on all the crazy stuff that happens along the way. When she's like, oh, I'll never lie to you again if I, and he's like, oh, if I say I love you, then that means I'm committing to something kind of thing, And it is the little flourishes between them throughout the movie that does emphasize the romance aspect of it. But you're right, it is like La La Land and the Tarantino verse, definitely.
No, there are ley lines, if I can be that nerdy, to other places in the Tarantino verse. Alabama, doesn't Joe ask Mr. White about Alabama in Reservoir Dogs?
He does.
Donnie Donowitz is the grandfather of Lee Donowitz.
The father of Lee Donowitz.
Father of Lee Donowitz, my mistake. But it is, True Romance is sort of one of those linchpins in how you perceive the headcanon of the Tarantino verse.
Yeah, up to a point, as long as you excuse the fact that certain actors have appeared in multiple films as different characters.
Yeah. Oh, it's all just fun and games, Kat. So we have the romance, and we are not yet, I believe, at this point they're in Nevada somewhere, but he calls Dick Ritchie to try and unload this cocaine that he's stolen from
Yeah, and it's interesting that
one of the most violent, disfigured people I've ever seen.
I thought it was interesting that he pinned the value at 500,000. He's like, I'll sell it for 200,000, and I'm thinking, I think the value of that cocaine is probably a lot higher, given the amount that he had.
Well, and also they make a great deal of effort to make sure that everyone knows that it is uncut cocaine.
Yeah, they do mention that quite a lot.
Lots.
And then going to Dickie's place and seeing that, you got Brad Pitt as his roommate, as the total stoner, and according to Judd Apatow, that was the impetus for Pineapple Express. It's like, what if you were to have that guy be the main character in such a crime story and have that character be chased by the bad guys? Yeah. I'm like, okay, I can see that. And I thought it was also surprising casting that they picked Brad Pitt to be that character instead of like flipping the roles, because Michael Rappaport certainly has a bigger role in this film.
Well, he was hot on the heels of Cool World.
Oh, that's true. It came out the same year? Oh no, the year before maybe. Yeah.
Something like that. But no, it is an early Brad Pitt role. But yeah, it's my God, it would have been so much better if Brad Pitt was in Pineapple Express.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was also funny that of the assassins pursuing them, James Gandolfini shows up alone. Like he's not with the other guys for some reason.
Right.
And how he shows.
Well, and also big shout out to James Gandolfini.
Yeah, he's really good in this too. This is also what won him, greatly assisted him winning the role of Tony Soprano years later. So that's another bonus. And I like that the stoner just totally sells out his friends. Oh yeah, they went to the surf motel, huh? And they're going down there to hide with the cocaine and trying to get their actor friend to help make a deal, because they just know that this Lee Donowitz guy is gonna sell him, and the way they're talking him up, I'm like, yeah, he probably sounds about right, especially when he has the phone conversation and Lee's just speeding down the highway, and it's like,
well, the entire rationality behind Clarence is that he calls Dick Ritchie, his friend that he grew up with in Michigan, and he's like, well, you're an actor, you know rich Hollywood producers, you know guys that would buy cocaine, and it sort of feeds into even how Clarence interacts with anyone. Like, he refers to a big cocaine deal as being like, I want to open Dr. Zhivago on all the screens you have. And it is a very, like, you can hear the flavors of Tarantino, even directed by Tony Scott. But, like, the words and the script are so referential, but it's interesting to see them directed by a person who doesn't carry them with weight. It's like, no, this is good words, but we'll deal with performances and shot composition and everything like that. Like Bronson Pinchot roller coaster scene. When I see the roller coaster scene, I'm absolutely taken into. I think that there was a scene in the Kevin Smith movie Chasing Amy, and it took place in a kitchen. And they were like, why don't we just put it in a hockey rink, you lazy? And it's like, oh, I guess we could. And that's how I feel about this. This would have been something in a restaurant or somewhere.
In the
and
motel.
It was like, how? In a motel. Exactly. Yes, Kat. And this is an instance where it's like, well, it would be most visually dynamic if we put it on a roller coaster. And Tony Scott was like, makes sense.
Like the Squid Lake Opera House thing from Revenge of the Sith.
Exactly. I want to see some Mon Calamari opera.
Yeah, so that those are some of the flourishes that I do like about it. I was also surprised that they didn't think that anybody was going to be pursuing them for the cocaine. I'm like, yeah, he killed the pimp, but it's like, dude, does that guy look like a person competent enough to come buy this much coke? No.
Yeah, but then there is the added threat of Christopher Walken representing, what is it, Blue Lou.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like they didn't, like, Clarence in Alabama didn't seem to think anybody was following them. They're like, "Oh yeah, we've made it. We're in the clear." And I'm like, no. Hence, when Gandolfini shows up at the surf motel and just beats the shit out of Alabama for the coke, and when he finally finds it under the bed, he's like chiding himself that he didn't think to look there, and like, how did I not notice that before?
Yeah. Did you think that was lampshading, or did you think that that was okay characterization?
What?
Well, the fact that he didn't look.
Oh well, I guess because on the one hand, it seems like he's giving them too much credit to think that they wouldn't have just stashed it under the bed, but then again, he doesn't really know them.
You can't be that dumb.
Yeah, he just decides, or maybe he's just lazy and figures, I'll just get her to tell me. And it's just easier to beat her up than, putting in any effort whatsoever in searching the room.
Well, and this is the worst. Like, this is, you know what? And it's so incredible because that scene between Patricia Arquette and James Gandolfini it takes place when Clarence is going out to get burgers.
Yeah.
And she is absolutely not only, sorry, I'm going to be off camera for a second, absolutely fighting for herself, but also for their plan, their relationship. Again, the movie's called True Romance. And she is like, I'm sorry, I don't know anybody named Clarence. My name is Sadie. We don't have any Coke, but there's a Pepsi machine down the hallway.
Yes, and he appreciated the humor.
But it's just interesting that, and she's affable and totally, there's an innocence to her devious.
Yeah, because it's not too devious. She's just lying to the guy because she doesn't really know who he is. I mean, when she first walks in the room and sees him there with the shotgun, she's like giggling and kind of having fun with it and goes along with it until she decides that she's not going to tell him anything. And even after he's beat her up and found the cocaine, the only thing he wants to know is where's her boyfriend, and she's still not willing to tell him that.
And again, I think that just sort of speaks to the through line of this is a romance. It's in the title.
Yeah. And it had a very fun type flow to it. And then you have weird things like when.
No, wait! Before we get out of the hotel room with James Gandolfini and Patricia Arquette, so after she gets the shit beaten out of her, she stabs him until she gets the shotgun, and then shoots him. Right?
So. Well, before that, even when he threw her into the bathroom and she went crashing through the window because he's like, no, we're
through the glass, yeah,
through the glass, and she's like, wait, and he thinks he's finally going to tell her, and instead she just starts laughing at him and says, "Your hair, you look really funny, you look ridiculous." And he looks in the mirror and sees that his hair is slightly disheveled. He's got some blood on his face.
Well, he's got blood on his face, yeah.
Yeah, then he goes at her again, and once he finds the cocaine and chides himself, she's got this Swiss Army knife and has pulled out the corkscrew on it, and he's like, "Oh, sure, take your best shot, honey, go for it." And he thinks she's going to try and stab him in the chest, and instead she stabs him in the foot, like right through the toe. And he really freaks out about that, throws her back, and that's when he just goes at it, and she manages to get she grabs the, like this bust that was there and just smacks it.
It's an Elvis bust.
Yeah, the Elvis bust, which is another through line of the movie, because she mentioned in the beginning that she really liked Elvis, and when Clarence is at the burger stand, he sees that other guy, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's reading the TV Guide magazine thing that's got Elvis on it. And he tells him, this is the greatest thing about Elvis and his appeal so many years later, what it is, so realness about him. And so she beats, and the point, even in the fight where she picks up the lid to the back of the toilet and smacks him with it and it doesn't shatter, I'm like, oh God, this is going to do the guy in. And yet it doesn't. It ends up being the gun and her getting a hold of, screwing him in the back of the neck. So it's like, man.
No, it's an insane fight scene that I thought was really tense based on the fact that Patricia Arquette is a slight blonde lady. She has always, I don't know if I'm the only one who is not broadcasting. Sorry, my internet is wet. She is a slight woman, and the threat, the tension of that scene is like, please don't hurt Alabama. And he
Yeah.
is going to. He is going to fuck her up. And it's an interesting dynamic. I'm and Kat, tell me if I'm being weird. But like with nowadays with people talking about strong female characters, Alabama?
Yeah.
What I she kind of kicked ass.
Yeah.
Killed James Gandolfini. Not well, the character, not the actor. Patricia
Yeah.
Arquette did not kill James Gandolfini. I just want to make that clear. But yeah, no, I think that was such a middle of the movie centerpiece of an action fight. I thought that was really intense.
Yeah.
And it was a credit to Tony Scott and the film itself. And also the writer who said, no, Alabama's going to kind of fuck shit up. And it's like, okay. But then the thing is that then she shoots him in the chest multiple times and then beats him with the shotgun once it's empty. And I was like, oh my God, that's overkill.
Well, she's mad at him at that point.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
And I like how, Clarence shows back up right then.
Right after, yeah.
Yeah, he sees what's going on, and he's like, we gotta get out of here. So he's running, and it's like, I'm noticing that the people around the motel are noticing what's going on. And they're kind of all looking, and at first I thought they were going to get pursued by cops. Like, somebody's probably going to call the cops on him. She's all bloody and bruised, and he's not. And he's, like, pulling her behind him and dragging him over to the car. And I'm like, might not go well, you know? But in the spirit of also being a hangout movie, they do other things. Like, when they're driving down the road trying to convince Elliot to get Lee in on the deal, and it goes into this little side thing of how Dickie wants him to put in a good word for him. He says an actor, and then Lee's like, "Well, can he act? Is he any good?" And they just kind of go back and forth on that for a while, which is fun. But you don't usually get that in a movie where everything has to be related to what exactly it is they're talking about.
No, but I like it with Richie, and he's like, "Did you tell him I'm good?" And Elliot's like, "Yeah, I lied."
Yeah, and Elliot, that's another weird one, because on the one hand, he was appropriately suspicious as to the safety of this coke deal that Clarence is trying to get him to participate in. And yet when we cut back to him after this meeting, he's speeding down the road with a hooker and some cocaine with him, and he gets so pissed off when they get pulled over doing all this dangerous driving that he wants her to like shove it in her bra. She's like, "I'm not wearing one." "Well, hide it in your pants." "No." And she just decides to be kind of bitchy about it, and she's like, "Nah, I'm not going to do this for you." Then she just smacks it to get it away from her, and the bag just blows up in his face. He's covered in coke, and I just burst out laughing. I'm like, "This is great," you know. And I didn't see that turn coming. And the guy's such a wuss that he doesn't want to do. When they said just 2 years in prison, I'm like, man, times have changed, you know, for the amount that he had on him, literally.
Well, and also it was interesting because when they're negotiating the situation, he's the one who interjects, and Lee wants a sample bag.
Yeah.
Because Lee never said that.
Right.
So he was all, like, Elliot was already, like, that was his, everything about that car ride. And that was something that I discovered this time watching it. And I was like, Elliot, you son of a bitch. If you had not asked for that fucking perk, you would have been fine. But then again, you never would have been with the hooker. I'm assuming she was a hooker.
And then the surprises get even better when Elliot gets arrested and he's being interrogated by Tom Sizemore and Chris Penn, which is just, how did they not make a spin-off buddy cop movie with those two? My God.
Well, they're both dead now. Spoilers.
Well, the characters, but, you know, and one of those actors.
No, there's so much death surrounding all four.
But they should, it could have been a prequel if they wanted it to be. Buddy cop prequel fun movie. Those guys were fun, and that's kind of goes to one of the.
They were.
That the movie takes its time to write the characters rather well and give you an extra reason to care about them, whereas in 99 other cop crime movies, they're just nobody interrogator. They have that kind of thing. But these two were really fun, going back and forth on it and talking about how much of a wuss this guy was. He doesn't want to do 2 years hard time, and I'm like, 2 years for that much cocaine possession? I'm like, okay, And he's like, oh, where, they're offering to wear the wire and how they're going to push that on him. I'm like, I can see where this is going. And then, of course, right on cue, we cut back to the stoner, and the rest of the gang shows up and want to know where. And I'm thinking, they don't show it, but I wonder if they killed him before they left. Or maybe they just determined that the guy was so stoned out of his mind that he couldn't possibly spill the beans on any useful information. So let's not bother. He's like, yeah, man, they went to the Beverly. It's down the way. You guys want to smoke a boo doobie here, or smoke a bowl? Yeah, and he cocks the gun. He's like, yeah, you
All right.
the beach a ways, and then you make a right. This is so good, And that's the fun thing, is that these little side characters, and it's like, I want to see more from them, see a movie from them, which again follows the typical Tarantino tradition where the supporting characters are better than the protagonists, or a lot more interesting. Because while I admit that obviously Clarence and Alabama are in love, I didn't find them as characters to be as endearing as a lot of this colorful supporting cast.
I really like Clarence and Alabama. I have a soft spot, and it's not just on this recent rewatch, but I do like. When you say a couple of crazy kids?
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel about them. It's an emotional. I don't think that Clarence has a mean bone in his body, but he's pretty fucking resourceful, and he hasn't asked you for the square root of jack squat. And I like him. I think that Alabama is so very, very honest. Even when she's lying. Like, I do care about Tarantino protagonists in the context of this particular hour conversation. I don't think that I've been, like, I like the bellhop. I like Mr. Orange. I like Jackie Brown or Ordell Robbie. Like, so far, all of the protagonists of a Tarantino movie I have found sympathetic to some degree.
Yeah, I just find the supporting cast are a lot more interesting.
Well, fine. You go get a coffee with Beaumont.
Yeah. But then there's the other thing that I thought was also funny, is that the two cops, Sizemore and Penn, are talking to their sergeant about how they're going to lay out this deal. This guy's going to wear a wire. We're going to bust Lee Donowitz. And they start going on this tangent about how they love Lee Donowitz's movies, especially Come Home in a Body Bag, which is his Vietnam magnum opus, so to speak. And they're like, oh man, that's a fucking movie, man. They're like, and yet they're talking about how much they like this, and yet they're scheming to try and take him down at the same time. So when the rest of the characters, when Clarence and Alabama go to the Beverly, and then they get into Lee's penthouse, and he's got the dailies playing for his sequel to Come Home in a Body Bag, and Clarence goes on about, I don't like any of those Best Picture winners every year. Movies like, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Come Home in a Body Bag, and I can't remember what the other one is. It's like, yeah, those are fucking movies. Like,
I think he says Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's like, yeah, those are movies. Like, this kind of crap they're doing now. It's like, this is what they need to do. And he mentioned how some veterans had told him that they loved it. That's what the real Vietnam was like. And Lee's like, yeah, man, that's kind of what I do this for. In a total half-ass statement, I do this just to find out that two guys on the street say captured the realism. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. And so they're trying to, but even Lee is smart enough not to take the deal initially for the cocaine. He wants to know what this is all about. And Elliot is sweating bullets, and I can't believe nobody picked up on that earlier. And I thought it was funny.
Well, but they have that moment. They have that moment in the elevator.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention that was really funny when you hear Chris Penn and Sizemore going back and forth about whether or not he's gonna get. Nah, he's not gonna shoot him because Clarence wants.
Oh my God, he's gonna shoot him.
Yeah, Clarence wants to make sure they're not being walked into a trap, and he's like pulling the gun on him and freaking out, and Sizemore's like, "Oh shit, they're not gonna shoot him. Oh shit, they're gonna shoot him." And he's gonna shoot him, and it's just in the elevator, and the whole time.
Well, and also, like, I think that, okay, so I'm a fan of Bronson Pinchot. I liked him in Perfect Strangers. Judge me. I liked him in, every movie I've seen him in. Like Second Sight with John Larroquette. I liked him in Beverly Hills Cop. Like, I like Bronson Pinchot. I wish he were in more things. And this is definitely a highlight of Bronson Pinchot. And there is a moment where we're discussing immediately, where Bronson Pinchot is in the elevator and Christian Slater is like, you fucking, what do you, I will kill you if you don't tell me the truth. And Bronson Pinchot spills all of the beans everywhere, but he doesn't do it coherently. So he is saying to Clarence, I just want someone to come and rescue me. I wish they'd make this stop. Why? And he is exactly telling, okay, no, I have a wire on
Yeah.
and I can be rescued anytime I want, but they're not doing it. And I don't know why. And then Clarence is like, you're such a pathetic prick. Fuck off.
Yeah, and Dickie and Alabama the whole time are insisting that he doesn't know anything and not really trying to stop him. And
Well, exactly. And that, I thought that that was a really interesting dynamic as well, is that even when, like, the people who trust Elliot shouldn't.
right, and then when he's talking to the producer, and Elliot, the producer walks him outside to talk some more, and then Elliot gets up and starts like grabbing at his crotch, and the signal's getting all messed up, and Sizemore and Penn are getting upset by this. What's going on? This is the key moment, the big part of the deal. We need to find out if they got the money or not. And they finally catch it just a little bit that the money's there, and they're gonna race in. And of course, because this is a Hollywood producer who buys and deals drugs, he's got two thugs with machine guns ready to go. And so the cops break into the room, hold everybody at gunpoint, while Clarence conveniently had left to go to the bathroom and inexplicably doesn't hear any of what's about to happen.
Well, he's in a reverie. Like, we forgot to mention the fact that he has, hallucinations regarding Elvis.
Yeah, he does when he's in the bathroom. And Elvis basically telling him that you're cool and everything's going to work out okay type of thing. And played by Val Kilmer, which is another surprise.
Yeah.
And
like, third build.
Yeah, and they keep him all obscured the whole time, so you can't really tell that it's him.
Never see his face.
Yeah, so that's going on. And then you have, of course, the gangsters show up around the same time, so you get in this Mexican standoff, which I was...
Not just any gangsters, Kat. Italian gangsters.
Yeah, the Sicilians. And I was wondering where it was going to go until Elliot just stupidly opens his big fat mouth and admits that he's wearing a wire. It's like, hey, man, you got to get me out of here. I'm not a part... You got to let me leave. I'm not a part of this. And Lee is like, I'm going to burn your SAG card for this. You're never going to work in Hollywood again. And I'm thinking, if this plays out the way you think it's going to, Lee, then you're either going to be dead or you're going to go to prison for so long you're not going to have the authority or the power to kick him out of Hollywood. It's like you're kind of done. And so...
Well, and Lee Donowitz is played by Saul Rubinek. First things first, Canadian. Second things second, he played Kivas Faggio in The Most Toys from Star Trek The Next Generation. Third things third, when he realizes that Elliot has betrayed him, the absolute betrayal that is portrayed by Saul Rubinek in that scene is palpable. It is such a great performance.
Yeah, that was great. And I like how splashing him in the face with coffee was good enough to kill him.
Well, it was hot tea. It was hot tea.
Yeah, it was hot tea. And that's also right after, like you mentioned in the opening, when he just keeps putting the sugar in the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Clarence just puts it in there and he's like, hey, you having some coffee with your sugar? It's like, just enough until the spoon stands up straight, or, whatever. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yep.
So he splashes him with the coffee or the hot tea, and that's when all hell breaks loose, and they all start killing each other.
Yes.
And there's only a few survivors of this. One of them, Vero says...
Who survives?
So the two... so Sizemore dies immediately, but Chris Penn lives.
Not for long.
Not for long. The black cop who's with him initially lives.
How did you feel about the feathers?
Yeah, it feels like it's something you would expect to find in that type of penthouse for some early 90s, late 80s, producer type, and how it's slow motion the entire time, for a lot of the time that it's flying around. And
what was I thinking? I thought it was like, who directed Broken Arrow and Face Off? John Woo.
Yeah.
I was like, these feathers are very John Woo.
Yeah, like in Mission Impossible 2 with the doves.
Right, exactly, same thing.
And so he's doing and then one of the bodyguards for Lee initially survives, who Penn shoots dead, saying this was for, whatever his partner's name was. He shoots him dead, and then you have one of the Sicilian guys lives too, And when prompted, he tosses his shotgun over the couch, but he's still got a pistol, which he uses to shoot the black guy in the chest. But he was wearing a bulletproof vest, and then he gets gunned down by Chris Penn, who gets shot simply because Clarence, again, inexplicably not hearing any of this, just kind of waltzes back in the room, does some kind of cartwheel to try and avoid getting shot, and Alabama falsely thinks that he's dead because he's got a nasty gash above his left eye, and so she picks up.
I thought he got his eye shot out.
It didn't look like it, or maybe it's just because the makeup might not have been as good. But yeah, okay. He does eventually lose the eye at some point because he'll wear the eye patch later on.
Right.
But Alabama decides to kill Chris Penn because she blames him for, even though I don't think it was his bullets which hit. I don't think they were supposed to his bullets hit.
May I take a mild digression in regards to the death of Officer Timms, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Played by Chris Penn. It wasn't until he shot the bodyguard who was asking for an ambulance.
Yeah.
Like, until that moment, Officer Timms was fine. But he was just like, here, this is for Tom Sizemore. And he fucking executes a wounded, unarmed man, no matter how bad he's been in the past. And it wasn't until then that Alabama had the opportunity to kill him. And it's always interesting to me when I'm watching storytelling. It's like, okay, when are they allowed to die? Like, when have you committed the fatal flaw that it's like, okay, you can die? And that was the moment. It was like you executed an unarmed man who wanted to get help. And that, while I understand your reason for executing him, doesn't excuse you from needing to die. And I thought that was an interesting storytelling choice, and I enjoyed it. Now, I would also like to say, I did not watch the unrated director's cut. I just watched the regular one.
I watched the unrated director's cut.
I did not.
And I've never seen the other, so I can't compare as to what would be different about it.
Well, this is what it's like to talk to an Italian in English, my friends.
I take it's probably just a few shots of the violence.
Yeah, probably. It makes sense.
And Dickie runs away like a coward after hiding for so long, and he doesn't bother taking Alabama with him, even though he had the option to do so.
Well, Dickie was a simple boy to begin with.
Exactly.
Oh, wait. Big shout out to William Shatner for the remake of T.J. Hooker. Thank you. True Romance.
Yeah. So, the big shootout, almost in a way, I thought it kind of conveniently closes off all the little loose ends in a way. And maybe they didn't have to have everybody in that hotel room at the time that happens, but okay, whatever. But then they're just kind of waltz out of the hotel because she thinks that Clarence is dead, and you feel the romance again where she's beyond devastated at the thought that he's dead. And I thought she was going to shoot herself, and they do the Romeo and Juliet thing. But he comes to in time, and they just kind of leave and drive to Mexico, where we find out that sometime later they have a kid, and they've named him Elvis. And, the movie is just, it's thoroughly entertaining. The cast is surprising at every turn, and these great bit roles. It definitely feels like a Tarantino script, but it has the Tony Stark or the Tony, what the guy's Scott, that's his name, Tony Scott. It has the Tony Scott energy. Because you have all that goddamn armor shit behind you on the wall, Scott, and getting distracted.
You know how I can tell you're excited, Kat? Anyway, moving on.
So we have the, I forgot his name again. Oh, Scott, that's his name.
Tony Scott. It's my name, you weirdo.
It is. So Scott has that energy and flair and pacing that just gets this story riveting by. Like, in a way, like when we were talking about Jackie Brown, I thought the dialogue was pretty sharp there too, but I never felt really invested, like it ever really took off. This feels like I'm just in from the beginning all the way through, and I think Tony Scott's visual compendium and his pace, it just has a lot to do with that. And the cast is wonderful. So I thought this movie was thoroughly entertaining all the way through, from beginning to end. And and by the way, I should have mentioned that they did take the briefcase of money of the $200,000, but
yes, they did, and they lived happily ever after, and that's my favorite part. Wow. You know what? I'm so happy that you're happy.
Yeah, this is easily for me the best of the four we've
So
reviewed so
far,
far. Yeah,
sure.
which is interesting because it's not even a Tarantino directed film.
Well, but it's written by. Do you think it's a valid inclusion based on what you've
Oh, of
seen so
course, absolutely,
far?
absolutely, it's a valid inclusion.
Okay. Okay.
After all, three quarters of Four Rooms is not Tarantino, and we still included that. So yes, it's absolutely valid. But I just really liked this movie. I had to rent it. I could have sworn a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago I looked it up and it was on streaming services, but it wasn't anymore. So I rented it instead, and I'll probably watch it again sometime in the next 48 hours or whatever before it expires. Because that was a good film. Wow, it's been a while since I've seen a movie for the first time where I've been hooked that quickly from the beginning and just been like on all the way through.
You have made me so happy. I'm glad that we got to do this.
It's films like this that make me miss Tony Scott.
Well, yeah.
I mean, yeah, his other last films weren't necessarily the best. Like I think his last two were Pelham 123 and Unstoppable, uh, both with Denzel Washington because he used him a lot.
No, Pelham
Deja
123
Vu.
was Pelham 123 Denzel and John Travolta?
Yeah, that was 2009,
Okay.
and Unstoppable was 2010.
With Chris Pine and John Travolta.
No, Chris Pine and Denzel Washington,
Fair enough. And Man on Fire.
and Deja Vu.
Oh, Deja Vu. That was an
So yeah,
interesting
so he
sort
worked
of.
with him four times. I think he did John Q as well.
I
Maybe.
love John Q. I saw John Q in theater.
Yeah, I like that movie. A lot of people didn't.
No, I liked it. I thought it
You
was
know,
a great. It had a political message, but I think that it was reasonable, and I thought it was a desperation thriller. I liked it.
yeah, that was. See who directed that film. Oh, never mind. It wasn't Tony Scott. I don't know
Well,
why I thought that.
either way, go check out John Q on a Sunday afternoon when it's raining.
He, so yeah, so Denzel and Tony Scott collaborated at least four times.
And Tony Scott, I think, was, as you mentioned, he directed Days of Thunder.
Yes,
He directed
Top
Top
Gun,
Gun.
which they mentioned in this film.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Okay, so speaking of, we should talk about True Romance again for just a second. Um, why do they keep referencing that Emilio Estevez Free Jack movie? It shows up like 2 or 3 times.
I didn't know that's what that was referencing.
Well, yeah, but you do remember seeing flashes of Anthony Hopkins on the television set during the film?
No, I don't think I was paying attention as much to the TV set.
Well, before your rental expires, just watch out because
Is that when
Tony Hopkins is in the movie.
they're at the motel and she turns on the TV?
I think it's even on Drexel's TV at one point.
Yeah, because Drexel was talking about how I got the hooker or whatever on the TV and you haven't even looked at it, and I don't recall seeing Anthony Hopkins there, but
Well, give it another look. Rene Russo is in there as well.
yeah, this whole movie just has a collection of colorful characters who show up for just a couple minutes, but they are all scene stealers in their own way.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
there was another bit of small tension in the scene when, right before his dad is about to get caught and interrogated, he parks the car, and the dog gets out and starts running. And he's calling to the dog to come back, and you hear the train coming. And I thought the dog was going to get hit by the train. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? What are they building to? And so I was kind of surprised when he stepped in his house and gets punched out instead.
I did, you know what? And that was something that I thought about when I was watching it. And I was like, why is the dog running away? And it just came to me, and I was just like, because if the dog is present, then Dennis Hopper would live.
Would he?
Well, yeah. As soon as he walked into his trailer, the dog would start fucking shit up.
Oh yeah, I guess maybe.
Or at least one guy, and then someone would shoot the dog, and that would be heightened tension. But from what I understand, test audiences didn't like the cut of True Romance when the dog died.
Are you serious?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I'm like, I wouldn't be, then again, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that was in there. Because after all, this is back in the day when they did test screenings for certain guys a lot. But yeah, that was just, and Dennis Hopper, coming in for that role. I'm like, oh, cool. Because once Drexel was dead, I'm like, is this going to be, I'm thinking to myself, is this going to be one of those kind of movies where people just show up for a scene, and die? Or is it because it was early in Oldman's career that, they didn't want to think about it at the time it's here? So when Hopper shows up and eats it within like 2 or 3 scenes, I was like, oh, this is one of those movies.
Yeah.
And which wasn't a bad thing because it was really cool to see everybody showing up and doing their thing. So yeah, that was great. Which is why I would have loved, like we say, with these Tarantino films, spin-off films about the spin-off prequels or whatnot about the supporting characters would be great. But this is, yeah, I loved this movie. It was great. I love it.
So, shall we get to the ratings?
Yes.
Are you going to have any fractions this week?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, what do you want to rate the Tony Scott directed, Quentin Tarantino written True Romance?
I give it 9 bullets.
Wow. This is the first week that I'm going to have to go ahead. You know what? I'm going to go 9. I gave Jackie Brown 9. I'm going to give True Romance 9. I'm saving my 10. I can't go giving 10s willy-nilly. Next week is Pulp Fiction, so I can't go giving 10s. But this is a very high-rated film in my regard as well.
I would have been more likely to give it upwards of a 10 if the ending was a bit different, because I just thought it was a little bit cop-out-ish, kind of lazy that Clarence is sort of conveniently absent for the climax and that all those stories get wrapped up that way. I was like, okay. It's like somebody realized they're racing the clock and we want to get the movie to be in really tight, so let's just kill everybody and let's hand off. I'm like, okay. And how they just kind of conveniently survive it. And it's like, all right. But yeah, this is great.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. Like, that's great. All right. Well, you know what? This is the best part of the show, Kat.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we go to the chat. And you know what my favorite part of the chat is? Is when there's not too much of it. No one has watched this show. Thank you very much, all of you. So we have 2 chats. This is the first one. Hey, what's up, G? Says Diggs BTW7, assumingly from the year 1993. And then, and by the way, thank you so much. Like and subscribe. And then Gundel Wintelbaum, my brother from another coast.
Interesting.
Would you care to read this one, Catherine?
So he says the original script by Quentin Tarantino is nonlinear. Tony Scott restructured the story to play in a simple linear story. Original screenplay was constructed more like Pulp Fiction. Okay, that's interesting.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. That is surprising. I wonder if it would have been enticing. Like, you show them, I'd imagine the opening scene would have been the Mexican standoff. It's like, how are they going to get out of this? Then again, Slater was in the room at the time, so maybe not. Maybe. I feel that linearly it's structured so well, it flows so well that it doesn't need the non-sequential, non-linear aspect to it.
Well, remind me about this. If not you, Catherine, then you, Gundel. Remind me about this when we watch Natural Born Killers. Because I think that this would be an interesting juxtaposition between True Romance and Natural Born Killers, right? It is about 2 couples.
Yeah, the Natural Born Killers ones are like the darker type of couples, more along the lines of the real Bonnie and Clyde as opposed to the romanticized version. So, yeah.
Well, and also, I suppose I'm the one with the buttons. QT does do a commentary on the special edition.
Nice.
So I will have to check that out. I do have the special edition. It's actually right there.
Yeah, didn't it just get a new release on what was it, by Kino or some one of those specialty boutique sellers.
I'm apologizing for it being a DVD and not a Blu-ray, but let's see. What is it? Deleted scenes, alternate endings, selective commentaries with Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, director and writer commentaries. Yeah, no, we're totes. Yeah, no, I
Yeah, Val
do.
Kilmer on the commentary. Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's again, this is a movie that I don't ever really see on TV. I don't see it in video stores, so it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing unless somebody brings it up. And so I just never got around to seeing it, even though I knew that it was the of the two written Tarantino films that got directed by other people, it's the one that he liked. And so that's the most that I knew about it.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And we've rated it nines across the board.
I wish
Uh,
Ben was here. It would make it so much more lively because it's one of his top 10 films of all time.
Well, and that's the one thing. And if anyone wants to go and check out our conversation in regards to Jackie Brown last week, that is when Ben from Cinema Gulp came over and we talked about that. And he said that this was, if not one of, then his favorite movie of all time. And I cannot fault him at all.
Oh,
I think that it is an excellent choice. I think it's an excellent film. I think that it has heart, comedy, action, and suspense, like everything you're looking for in a movie. True Romance has,
mm,
in my opinion.
yeah.
So, on that note, do you have anything else? Where can people find you on the internet, Kat?
You can find me every second and fourth Sunday of the month on the Virtual Cantina Network YouTube channel at 8 a.m. Pacific, co-hosting with Dave and Giovanni, The Unifying Force, which is a Star Wars talk show. This Sunday, we're going to be freewheeling it, so that'll be fun. This will be our 20th episode coming up, so that's always fun. And you can find me in the Phantasmagorium every Wednesday, Bullets, Blades, and Babes. We also have our Martinis, Gadgets, and Guns show cataloged there as well. And yeah, check us out. It's fun.
You are so much better at this than I am.
I know you started the show by playing initially the wrong intro.
Well, thank you so much. That
Yes,
has
go to
been
Scott.
that has been Martini's Gadgets and Guns. Thank you for Phantasmagorium with us.
Blades, Babes.
And if we set to stun all of the Bullets, Blades, and Babes, I don't fucking care.
And meet in the cult classic movie corner next week.
Why don't we do that too? Yeah, cat.
Yeah. So next week, Pulp Fiction.
Next week is Pulp Fiction. I'm just gonna go through. I think, is there anyone? Yeah, no, just one more. Thank you, Gundle.
Yes, thank you, Gundel Wunderbaum, one of our foundational members of the Phantasmagorium show.
He's a foundational member of my life. So, yes, thank you so much. And next week is Pulp Fiction. I guess we'll see you then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am hungry. Let's go get a taco. Hey, Kat, when do I hit the stop the broadcast?
You were supposed to hit it at the end.
Oh, no. So now?
Yeah.
Come on. It's funny.